if someone tells you that you can't have ADHD because you have a university degree or you hold down a job or your place isn't a mess and you're not disheveled, then I want you to send them today's video because in my mind, there is nothing more invalidating than someone denying you your own life experience. And in today's video, we're going to talk about why that is and what you can do about it. But first, if we're meeting for the first time, welcome. My name is Karen McGill. I'm an ADHD coach and creator, and I am here for the busy, ambitious brains who want to be validated for their own life experience. So let's get into it. I have heard from so many adult folks with ADHD that they have family members, friends, spouses that either deny their diagnosis or say there's no such thing. I am not going to address those folks who say there's no such thing because you can't argue with ignorance. It is what it is. But if they do understand that ADHD is a disorder, but they just don't believe that you have it, even if you have been diagnosed, then first of all, I want to say, I'm sorry you're going through that. Because like I said, there's nothing more invalidating than someone refusing to acknowledge your own internal life experience. But let's get into why folks might deny that. And I'm not even just talking about your family and friends. You might go to your family doctor or talk to a therapist, and they may even look at you and say, well, because of, your job, your education, the fact that you're put together and dressed, you can't have ADHD. First of all, please don't settle for what any medical professional would say just looking at you without a proper diagnosis, because most medical professionals are not taught about ADHD. I have a friend who is a radiologist, and he doesn't really believe that I have ADHD, even though I have been diagnosed by a psychologist who is trained to diagnose people with neurodiversity. So I have the clinical evidence, and yet there are doctors out there who don't think that I have it because they look at me as someone who is intelligent, put together, and that is all they need to know to assume that I am just hunky-dory. And I imagine that this has probably happened for you too. And the reason that happens is twofold. First of all, people normally associate ADHD with a 12-year-old hyperactive boy. They do not understand what it truly is, especially when it comes to women and girls. And the second reason is that naturally, this is a silent disorder. If I had a broken leg, you would be able to see it and you would not be arguing with me about my broken leg. But because I have different brain wiring, people can't tell because the only way it would show up is if I had some visual representation of that, i.e. being a hoarder or not being able to dress myself or bathe, which some folks who have ADHD struggle with those things, but a lot of us don't. So if we look put together on the outside and we sound intelligent, then we must be doing just fine in life. And it's not that I want people to acknowledge my disorder because I need them to accommodate for me in some way. Largely, I don't need any accommodations whatsoever. I just want to be respected as a grown-ass adult who, when they say that something is a challenge in their life, that it can be taken at face value because I said so. The most frustrating part for me is that there are real consequences with having an ADHD brain. And while it doesn't look like much from the outside, mostly because I've come up with a lot of compensatory methods, so you really can't see it from the outside. But number two, because girls are raised to don't be too much, especially when you tend to be too much, and be quiet, be seen and not heard. Those messages we get as young girls never stop, right? Like as we continue to grow up and mature, we are told to maintain a certain presence and be a certain way and be a certain size and look a certain way. So we become these masters of masking whatever is happening beneath the surface so that you never see the chaos that's happening inside. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a minute. But before I do, I want to say this. The place where I have been denied my own identity and my own personal experience the most is here on YouTube and in social media. Showing up as an ADHD coach in what looks like an otherwise straightened up room. I'm in a rental right now, so it's pretty bare, but you guys have seen my office before. I look pretty normal from the outside, and yet so many folks leave comments saying you can't have ADHD, or it's not fair, she's saying these things, but she doesn't have ADHD, or who does this chick think she is? She doesn't have ADHD. Those assumptions are being based on how neat the back of my screen is, or the fact that I brush my hair, or that I'm an articulate human being. If that is what you are basing your criticisms on, then you are not only part of the problem, you are the worst of it. Because if you have ADHD and you have been denied the acknowledgement of that from other people, and yet you do that to other folks, whoa, that is one thing that really drives me bananas. It doesn't happen very often, I will say. But for those of you who think that I don't have ADHD because I sound so well thought out in my videos, I want you to know that for every 12-minute video I publish, it takes me about 90 minutes of run and recording time to actually say everything I need to say because I repeat myself so much, I forget what I was supposed to say, and I screw up my words so many times. So please know, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that I do in order to show up for you guys as best as I can. So the least I would ask of you is to respect that a fellow ADHDer is working really hard and you just can't see it, as you probably do a lot yourself. So with that said, now I'm going to show you exactly what my ADHD looks like, or at least what it looked like when I got diagnosed in 2021. Now, like I said, I got diagnosed by a psychologist who only diagnoses neurodiversity. It was a 3-month process, and I had to do a whole bunch of assessments on my own. People in my family got assessments. My husband got an assessment, and they had to answer a whole bunch of questions. I had to go in and do a personal interview. They did a whole bunch of different tests on me, like whenever you see an X come up, hit the space button, and if a Y comes up, don't hit the space button, and things like trying to redraw a house or remember a bunch of numbers. So they were testing things like spatial awareness, working memory. They also measured my intelligence, which I wasn't prepared for, and also my Myers-Briggs, which was kind of weird, but nonetheless. This is the results of this test. So I put my actual diagnosis into ChatGPT, and it created this little graph to illustrate where my ADHD shows up. So here's how to understand this. Wherever you see the line is closest to the middle of the circle, that is where I struggle the most. Where you see the lines are furthest to the outside, that is an indication of above average to superior level skills. So I have above average skills in verbal memory, vocabulary and word knowledge, and verbal fluency. This does not surprise me because my biggest strength is communication. I've done it my entire life. It's what I'm compelled to do. It's a natural interest for me. I've just always been a very good communicator, which is why I have this platform in the first place. I love to communicate and talk. Now, let's look at some of the other areas where I'm not so skilled. Mood and emotional regulation is impaired. Impulsivity control is very impaired. Executive function, planning, organizing, and shifting tasks, I guess, is also very impaired. Attention and sustained focus is impaired. Processing speed, impaired. Working memory is about average, which I'm actually impressed with because I can remember nothing. So that is how my ADHD shows up. And unless you are around me 24/7, you're probably not going to be able to see it. I'm also very skilled at masking because of those great communication skills. So even when things are really bad on the inside, I am great at just smiling and nodding and pretending that everything's okay on the outside. And that is both a blessing and a curse because sometimes I would be better served to just be honest about struggles that I have, or going through a hard time, or being impulsive and doing something that I really regret. I work very hard at doing better, but those things are still a struggle for me. Now, coming back to this little graph, I would say that it's been about 4 years now since I've been diagnosed. And if I were to do this testing all over again, I think that my results would look a bit different. The reason being is that the area where I struggle around executive function, planning, and organizing, I have put blood, sweat, and tears into figuring that out. I have created so many compensatory methods around that lack of skill that I used to have because it really got in my way. And if you guys have been around here, you know how many planning videos I've done. I don't do that because I'm good at it or that I love it that much. I do it because it's something that I'm really impaired around. So I've had to make it an interest. And for me, public accountability and planning out loud and sharing videos and watching videos on how other people plan has helped me to get so much better at that skill that I was really poor at. So I share that because I also don't want you to think that just because you have ADHD, your problems are always going to be your problems. There's no getting past it. That is absolutely not true. A lot of the things that we struggle with can be improved by just building skills. Planning and organization is a skill that I've put a lot of time into. So I think that if I took the test again, it might look a little bit more like this. However, if you saw my Tupperware drawer, you probably would disagree. So coming full circle, that is why some people will never believe you when you say you have ADHD. You probably look too put together for them to assume that you might struggle on the inside. And I can tell you, as someone who has coached a ton of people, I have coached Harvard MBAs, lawyers, doctors, very smart, successful people who all look like they're successful on the outside, but they are struggling on the inside, right? ADHD does not mean you lack intellect. It doesn't mean that you can't speak articulately, and it doesn't mean that you can't keep a clean, tidy house. It just means that your constellation of symptoms or experiences may not be visible from the outside, or you're very skilled at masking them. So for the rest of us, as a humanity, if someone shares with you that they have a diagnosis or they're thinking of getting a diagnosis, the least we can do as kind, compassionate human beings is say, wow, I didn't realize you were struggling. Do you want to share more about your experience? That is all you have to say. So on that note, I hope this was helpful. Feel free to share this video with whoever you think needs to hear it, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Today's Chloe. Don't be rude. Chloe, sit. Sit. Oh, it is my cooker. Okay, fine, don't kiss. At least show them your beautiful face. Just Chloe.